We can do the first one.
Okay.
And essentially what we're looking at is the raising of the hand behavior. And it's after an instruction or some sort of cue to know that that's appropriate. So it probably count per opportunity, could also be possibly frequency, rate. I mean, it kind of depends, but that's definitely the behavior we're looking at. In addition to the waiting behavior, which of course is going to be a duration. It really depends on, looking at those. Definitely looking at those separately, and also depends on what's the most important. Is it how often the hand goes up? Is it how long they can keep it up? Is it how long they're waiting? All of those kinds of things come into play in terms of actually making the decisions. And I think that's it. And then at the end, I mean, it says definitely that out of blank opportunities per week. So, and that's pretty common, I think, probably for all of the goals, right? And so what we were talking about just in general that covered all of the goals was that definitely indicated count per opportunity, but also because it gave a duration, or it gave the parameters of what you're looking at, is that you could in a way look at that as rate as well. But knowing that you just have to put the ends on those goals to make it measurable. So is that what we're looking
Another one.
for? Okay. Do you want me to?
Somebody else can do it.
Which one are you going to do?
I don't know.
Is there one that would highlight your...
Sure, the last one says by blank in community settings, when directed to stop, the learner will cease movement within blank seconds and remain paused until directed to move or go again across at least blank different community settings and blank different adults on blank out of blank opportunities per week for blank consecutive weeks. So there's a lot in there. And I mean, that's one thing that we were finding in all the goals. It's like we have to look at the different community settings, we have to look at the different adults. That's all good, so you need that in the data too, but that wasn't really going to deciding what kind of measure it was necessarily. So this is a count per opportunity. The opportunities that they've been directed to stop.
Which part of it is count per opportunity?
So them stopping movement is the behavior, and the opportunity is them being directed to stop. And then there's also though that they're going to remain paused until directed to move or go again. So that's also putting a duration measure in there, because they might be able to do that for 15 seconds but not successfully do it for 30 seconds yet. So you don't want to just say yes they waited or no they didn't wait, because you might see a lot of improvement like hey now they're waiting for 20 seconds but the teacher still thinks it's BS because the kids started running.
May I ask, is there another way to look at within so many seconds? Is there another measure?
Well, no, that's a latency.
Well, I know, but the point is, were you already talking about within so many seconds?
No,
I
she was
missed
talking
it.
about the remaining still.
She just didn't have that
She
part.
hadn't got
We
that- she hadn't
have the
gotten that
latency.
yet.
We have the latency part.
Okay, I just
indicated
wanted
as
She
well.
just hadn't talked about it yet.
Yeah, and then there's the latency of ceasing within a certain amount of seconds.
If you do them in the order that they're written, if you respond to them that way,
Sure.
then it's less confusing. See how I
Yeah.
got confused? In other words, the
Yeah.
first one was latency, and then the next one. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
The first one was count per opportunity.
And then latency, and then...
What, within so many
Okay, so let's
seconds?
go through it in order. Okay, so, no, seriously, I think it'd be good. Let's go through it in order. Okay, so in community settings, right, so that's our setting. We mark that down because that gets into that later, but when directed to stop, so that's your opportunity, that's your denominator. The learner will cease movement, that's your numerator. That's going to be your count per the opportunity. Within blank seconds, that's your latency, okay? And remain paused until directed to move or go, that part is your duration, again, across at least blank, and then we get into all the other parts of it.
And you could just use latency for within. How quickly did he stop when you said stop?
Right.
It could just be latency. and not using count per opportunity. That's all that I'm suggesting.
Unless he never
Never
stops.
stop.
Right.
Or if he stops,
You
but
need the,
you
you
don't,
need that
he
part.
stops one time out of 10,
Right.
that's not very good.
No, it isn't, but I'm just saying in other words, there could be different measures, depends upon the kid. Yeah.
And it's gonna depend on what aspect of the goal is most imperative for that learner. I mean, maybe you have a
Exactly.
learner who you know can perform
Well-
a number of the things that are already listed in the goal, but it's that latency that's the issue. In which case, like you said in your presentation at the beginning, what are you really trying to glean from your data? What information are you really trying to get? And if
You may
that's
not-
the most
yeah.
important component, that's the one you're probably
Well, if
gonna
you
focus
wrote the
on.
goal this way, you're trying to track all of that.
Not necessarily for the reporting agency.
Well, but if
That's
you
all
wrote,
that
yeah,
you
but
may
these
track
things
it
were included
internally,
for a
but you
reason.
may not report on all of it.
If the remaining pause part wasn't important, because he does it, it's getting him to stop his difficulty. You wouldn't have included that. But as you're working on your goals, say a few months down the line, it's like, oh wow, now he's waiting. That's not a problem. We don't necessarily need to be looking at that data anymore, but he's still not stopping when I instruct, and it's still a safety concern. So let's really focus on that part.
And it may be when you first start out that you have it that you train him to stop for 5 seconds, and you have the staff after 5 seconds say go, and it's a plus or minus. Do they do that waiting? So the staff isn't having
Increase
to do all those different measures,
Right.
Because that's a lot of measures for one
Totally.
for one
Right.
little goal.
Exactly.
So
I
we
think
might just
prompting too. I mean, isn't that a heavy prompting? Do you care about prompting in a
Yeah,
goal like
but
that?
we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about the prompting in a minute.
that's going to fall under your count per opportunity. You usually will do a plus minus or so it'll be a minus if you get prompted or.
I don't want prompts and goals.
Well,
Do not, nope, do not,
So
no
it'll be
prompts
minus.
and goals. Trust me.
So good, very good example. Thank you guys. Thank you.
good.
What group is to go next?
Who wants to go next?
We'll go
Thanks
next.
for saying. Alrighty then.
Group six, we'll start with the first one. I'll read it. By blank, when instructed to transition from a preferred activity back to a work, teacher-directed instructional condition, learner will begin transitioning within blank seconds and begin to engage in the instructional task within blank seconds on blank out of blank opportunities per week for blank consecutive weeks. So we looked, the focus of this seems to be how quickly does the learner transition from a preferred activity back to a work condition. And so we saw that as being latency, and we saw that as being divided up into two different latencies, and then also a count per opportunity and a duration. For the count per opportunity would be the blank out of blank opportunities, and the duration would be the number of consecutive weeks. The two different latencies would be the transition is the first one, and then the beginning to engage in the instructional task would be the second. We actually were questioning a little bit, depending on what the student was like, and like if we really needed both of those latencies. But we're assuming that if the goal was written like that, that the student might come to the desk and not start working right away. And that's why we're taking two different latencies.
Right, and again, it goes into what's the behavior you're looking at. Leaving the old task or starting the new task, and sometimes it is both.
In your narrative, you could actually respond to by writing in. You don't have to take the date on it. You look at the data to see, do I have 3 consecutive weeks? You see what I'm saying? So you don't have to say that it's a duration. You're not collecting data on that.
Yeah,
You're
that's-
looking at the graph.
Well, I was gonna say, the cross consecutive weeks, that's not a duration. We're looking at duration of behavior of the student.
Right.
That's not duration, terms of.
That's a criteria.
Yeah, that's different, right? That's not like the type of data for duration of how long they're gonna transition.
It is duration, but you're not recording it
That's-
according to
It
the
doesn't have to do with
Yeah,
the
that's all, yeah.
That's why I'm saying you're
Yeah.
looking at the graph.
That's your criteria that you're looking at to say whether or not the task has been mastered.
Right.
Or you need to up the criteria, improve your performance at that point.
That's the duration of data collected, as opposed
Right.
to the
Right.
duration of the student
Right.
behavior.
Right.
Okay.
So they're both duration, but one is measuring student behavior, the other is just measuring how long you guys took data.
Okay.
Well, you're also looking at, given, if I said I want 3 consecutive weeks, do I have the data that I want across 3 consecutive weeks, just to make it clear, okay?
All right, good. And then what's the second one you guys are gonna do?
Okay, the second one is the last one. So by blank, learner will answer at least blank different personal information questions. What's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? Who is your mom? At least blank across at least blank different adults and blank different environments, blank times, given blank opportunities per blank. So we came up with, again, latency
For which one?
for answering the question. Who is your name? What's your name? Where is your mom? So between the time the question's asked and the time they give an answer would be latency. And then, of course, we have count for opportunities. How many times a day are they given that opportunity to answer those questions? And then we also have, again, duration. For times given.
When we were talking about it, we were discussing,
Duration of how long you're taking the data.
Yeah,
yes.
it's not the learner.
Right.
And also, when we were referring to latency, we were discussing cases that we are on that actually would pertain more to latency than this particular goal. We each have students that we work with where the latency in answering a personal question is our concern. However, in this case, it does seem like this isn't necessarily a latency goal.
And that's fine. I mean, that's what I said. You guys can change the goals to meet whatever it is that you
Yeah.
need. These are just kind of basic goals.
I'm just wondering if you could do this.
Speak up.
I'm just wondering if you could do a fluency
Yeah.
training with us with this specific, like if you had 5 questions or 10 questions, personal information questions.
Yeah, you could do a fluency count.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so don't read the question. Just state the part. In other words, don't read blank, 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 blank. State the part as you go through it, okay?
Wouldn't the first part, if I heard right, they put frequency or latency, can't you also put count per opportunity? Because the learner will
Yeah, and
answer
they-
it. Oh, is that what they
uh-huh,
say?
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And it's going to depend on your learner.
I got you.
So if latency is not a problem, they answer the question right after you asked it, then you may not even care about latency, but you may want to look at count for opportunity of correct responses.
Although I would
Because it
suggest
says
that
answers at least.
if it were latency that we were trying to look at with this goal, it would
would say
indicate within a certain amount of
Yes.
time, which it doesn't. So I would actually
it
say
should.
it's not latency,
It's
count per
CPO,
opportunity.
because it says at
But it's fine because they individualize. I'm not trying to say it's wrong. I'm just saying if it were latency that we're going for in this goal, we would indicate that they would respond within 2 seconds or whatever.
And we also
These are just examples.
that we would take rate data on this as well.
Now remember, you don't want to take too much data, guys. Right.
Okay, next group. Okay.
We'll start with the first one. So we're not reading it, so you guys can read it. So in the beginning part, we'll wait up to. So I see duration as being the main thing there. How long will you wait up there? I also could see frequency being a part of it. And then the last one is, count per opportunity. Clearly, we need to have enough opportunities. And it explicitly says in there. That's about pretty much. That's what I saw the gist of it there. But I think duration being the big one. But you wait up to blank minutes.
Great. Next person in that group? Another person?
Do the last one.
Learner will make
The last one?
the last one. Learner will make socially acceptable comments without adult prompts to blank peers without their count of frequencies what we did for that one.
Notice I said without prompts. I do not want to see an objective with prompts in it. Not acceptable. Because you don't want that prompt dependency. Okay? That's why it's so critical. You got to get those prompts stated out as quickly as you can. If you have to put them in, you want them out even that day if you can get them out.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's a teaching methodology, so that we wouldn't necessarily need to even include in a goal anymore.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's
That's how
without
you're going to
prompts.
teach it. You might teach it with prompts at first, but just like we don't specify
Where you
curriculum.
follow the instructions in the format and you add a prompt, you add a prompt if you need it, but you get it out as quickly as you can within that session. And if you can't, you gotta really focus on that. Okay?
Okay, good job, guys. Next group.
We can go. Group 1.
Okay, which one are you gonna do?
The first one. And we decided that this was,
What'd you say?
ready
Yeah.
No, I was reading it, I'm sorry.
The rate of the, number of the landing and the, duration of the
Yeah,
wait
okay,
time.
yeah.
By the way, we're not gonna show the answers on the video. That will be up on the YouTube, so that people actually get to do the exercise if you do it with somebody. We'll cut this part of it out, even though we'll have it. No, no, but you'll have the ability to check.
My mom always said I'd be a star.
Yeah.
Okay, group 2.
Okay, group 2, we're gonna do the first one, and that was with a learner that's using a communication device, and we're looking for him to activate the communication device, and then waiting up to a certain number of seconds to receive the requested item that he has asked for, so that's gonna be duration of waiting. And and we want him to be able to do it at least, we said 5 times per day across 5 consecutive days. So we decided that we would take rate data on a per school day or per session basis.
Use that rate data, guys. Least amount of time to take data, if you can get away with it.
Okay, and your second example?
So looking at the last one, where the learner's brushing teeth, so when he's instructed to brush teeth, so at that point I'm going to want to do a latency measure to see how long it takes him to actually initiate. And I'm expecting him to use, let's say, a written schedule, written task analysis, to follow the steps of toothbrushing. So if I'm using my written task analysis, at that point I'm probably going to do a count per opportunity given the total number of tasks within the analysis and see if he gets 8 out of 10 within the analysis, 9 out of 10 within the analysis. But I want it to be detailed so I can see exactly which steps he's getting and which ones he might be missing.
And you might do those, you might have him brush his teeth twice, so you get
yeah.
at least 20 opportunities.
And I would want to make sure that he's able to do it across the whole day too, across morning, afternoon, evening. Some kids might have a hard time at night, might not have a hard time in the morning. And then there's a second count per opportunity component where I'm measuring, did he do the entire task of toothbrushing, this many out of the number of opportunities that were provided. And it might also be a good candidate for inner response, because I want to actually look at, is he, once he puts the toothbrush on the toothpaste, does he immediately begin brushing, or is there a delay there?
Yay.
Good point. They said a kid that liked to look at himself in the mirror. So he would get it, and then
Yeah.
One of the things I
Teenagers
talk about
all
with
year
that kind of stuff is just is quality, which isn't really, I'm just pointing that out because we talked
No,
about
it is
like, all
another
these things
measure.
because quality in which you do things, he could brush his teeth for the timer could be, the timer is still brushing, great. But in terms of like the quality in which they do it, that could be like actually part of the more important piece because it might not be doing very good. So I'm just saying like.
Well, you can
well, that
measure
could be
side
part
note,
of your steps if
looking
that's
at
what
that.
you're looking at. You know, does he do the right side, the left side,
At least
the
this
middle?
many times over
Yeah.
And
here.
how well does he do it?
Yeah.
And then
That's more the acquisition, generalization, fluency kind of
right,
thing.
right.
Yeah, but
Acquiring
you-
it, just putting the brush in your mouth.
But you can also use a Likert scale on that, you know, where you do 1 out of 5.
Like how well did he do it?
Yeah.
And again,
Intensity.
your measures, and then actually, what do you want to know? You know, if he can brush his teeth just fine, he just doesn't go do it, then you probably want to know that he went and did it. Or, you know, does he only brush the left side of the mouth versus the entire mouth?
Or in proximity of an adult, that's
Yeah.
controlled reinforcement in the conditioning history.
Right.
Or punishment.
Chewing on the
Sure.
toothbrush instead of
Absolutely.
brushing.
Is everybody done?
No, one group left.
Still one group. Okay.
That's
That's us.
slackers.
So we were doing number 2. So learner will ingest a medication administered by an adult. Adult placing serving spoon pill into the learner's mouth within seconds across at least adults. That's Lisa, that's latency.
Great. Speak up, Brianne.
So the last one I picked because it was weird, so I wanted to.
You are weird, Brianne.
I know, but it's like so weird. So given the container, I guess we would do like count per opportunity of how many times he can pour the drink into the cup. But my other question was like potentially doing the duration, because I guess you could do like this, or you could do like dripping, you know? So I just thought that was, I don't know what, I guess it depends on the person.
Right. Depends on where you're sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're wanting to look at.
I think I'll do. That's good.
So what type of data was it?
The count per opportunity
Count
and
per
then the
opportunity.
duration of how long pouring. I guess you could do like an ideal pour yourself and say, okay, it takes me an average person 5 seconds. I don't know.
Isn't it just a yes or no? How many times?
For a little bit.
Well, that's the count per opportunity.
It's count per opportunity.
So how many opportunities? In
That's
there?
really, you just don't get a spill, you're fine.
Could be the quality thing too, again.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
overnight.
what I-
Right, like if they start by dumping the
I mean,
whole thing and then
Right.
eventually
Yeah,
they
but
like,
still,
it
so-
start, like when they first start their aim is off, so there's a little spill, but then they're actually paying attention, they adjust for that, and of course, I mean, that's
And you
a
could do
big
lighter
improvement,
spill
but
on the
yeah.
amount
Right.
of spill.
But considering that there's,
I'm gonna count this
that there's actually a measurement of liquid, you could do a rate, as you're looking at time, and then you're working with the same volume. It's how many ounces, so how many ounces per second are they pouring?
No, you're not gonna measure that.
Flow rate?
You're
Yeah.
gonna measure that?
No, you put a timer on, you know how many are there. If it's 5 ounces, it takes them 5 seconds.
Right, but I can throw a cup of juice at you real fast, Tony, but it doesn't mean it's getting accurately into the cup.
This is gonna get really nitpicky, you guys are gonna hate me for it, but if I have a student who really has a hard time with this too, then when I'm checking for generalization, I'm checking to make sure they can do it with a jar or a jug, so it requires 2 hands, if they can do it with a milk carton that has a handle on it, and that might even be a component, depending on your student, that you would actually wanna include in the language of the goal, depending on what they have problems with, because maybe when there's a handle, they
Again,
don't spell.
what is the behavior you
not?
want to measure?
What do you want to know?
Yeah. Very good.
When you mentioned that piece about operational versus the goal statement, the operational definition.
I don't even
Okay,
I don't.
here's what came up just a second ago. David and them said, well, this goal statement, they were trying to use it as an operational definition. You're not doing that. The goal statement is just your reporting mechanism. Your operational definition is of the behaviors that you want. And you have to get some inter-observer reliability on that.